Ladies and gentlemen, I want to read you a couple of articles. ABC News. Evidence so far doesn't justify Federal Bureau of Investigation search at Biden home. Experts say. Well, experts are always going to give the Democratic Party viewpoint on anything that's published on ABC News or the Washington Post. Oftentimes. Why? Because they'll find an expert that agrees with that viewpoint. If they found a different expert, perhaps a more conservative authority on the topic, like Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, or anyone who can look at this from a conservative vantage point or an independent vantage point, you might find a different, you might find the viewpoint that, oh, well, if he didn't even know that there was classified data, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has even more incentive to go ahead and look. Because the rebuttal is, well, Trump was obstructing justice. He had received a thank you note from the Federal Bureau of Investigation before the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Okay? He had received a thank you note. And so they had already looked at the facility that was storing Trump's classified data. He was a former president with the power to declassify anything. They haven't indicted him. The Bureau took everything else that he had. And there's almost certainly a record of what he has as president. So there was a record of what he was given as president, what he took and didn't give back before he even left the White House. That being said, the initial issue was, oh my God, he had classified data, Trump, why wasn't he indicted? And now they, as always, they went to, well, obstruction of justice, which is what they were trying to say with Mueller when Mueller was a complete failure and couldn't find that he was an operative of another country. So, to do so, as they did with Trump, prosecutors would have to persuade a federal judge that there's probable cause that by conducting a search, they would find evidence of a crime or multiple crimes. It's technically a crime to have lost classified data to begin with, especially if you're not a president. The issue with Biden is that he didn't know that there was classified data. All you would need, though, is an informant. So there was an informant at Mar-a-Lago, and that was part of the search warrant. So you don't need much. It's definitely a possibility, which is what I'm talking about in this video. Also, they want this president. Democrats are turning their back on this president. Check out the segment on Pelosi that I did. Adam Schiff, Warnock, they have all condemned Biden. That's not business as usual. And I've been talking a lot about the fact that they probably want to replace him with Vice President Kamala Harris. They want him to resign before impeachment, because impeachment will open up a Pandora's box of problems. And they don't want to go into 24 as a wounded political party. But cooperation is a critical difference. No, it's not. How could he have cooperated? Because he didn't know that he had the class. This is the thing with Biden, that actually they say, well, it's a major difference. And that proves that Biden's case is not as severe or as egregious as Trump's. The fact he didn't know is a big problem. Generally, the Federal Bureau of Investigation would go into places like that, or would enter a situation when a person, well, it could be a lot more classified data, who knows? Also, Hunter was staying at that Delaware house, according to the New York Post. So, but legal experts, quote, including former prosecutors reached by ABC News. Well, the legal experts are all vote blue no matter who. Say at least so far that for Biden, there doesn't appear to be evidence that would justify the dramatic and unprecedented step the Federal Bureau seeking a search warrant on the current president's private residence. That was a public relations stunt with Trump. He was in contact with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. and he was negotiating with his attorneys. He did not break the law. That's why he wasn't indicted. The fact that Biden doesn't have any knowledge that he lost the classified documents at all. So it's not like Trump. He left the White House. There was an ongoing negotiation with the National Archives, a government library, and they wanted a public relations victory, a stunt before midterms. So then they went after the Mar-a-Lago. They engaged in the Mar-a-Lago raid. Okay, at least with Trump, you knew what was going on. He had those records. He declassified them. He was president. So the precedent is Bill Clinton and a bunch of other presidents who had classified data, either declassified them or verbally, according to Politico, or as commander-in-chief, according to Supreme Court precedent, had the power to declassify anything. According to President Obama's executive order, you could only declassify, a vice president can only declassify certain documents, especially documents that he or she classified themselves. Okay. Completely different. It doesn't, most of the time, the Federal Bureau of Investigation jumps into these question marks, these investigations where, we don't know how much classified data is missing. They don't know how much classified data is missing. They always knew there was a finite amount with Trump. So it's much worse with Biden. They keep saying, it's not that big of a deal. He's cooperating. Well, of course he's cooperating. He didn't even know, he never even knew that he lost any. That's a bigger problem than a president leaving the Oval Office with classified data, which Bill Clinton and others did. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen, right now, 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. every single day. And a couple of hours within the early afternoon, I will have a segment up. But the Federal Bureau of Investigation could very because Democrats, and here's the political angle, the naive and gullible way of looking at things, they would never do anything politically. They would never do anything to help the Democratic Party. Well, we know from the Twitter files, we know from the Mar-a-Lago raid, we know from the Steele dossier, we know from the Trump investigations that he was an operative of the Kremlin, which of course was fabricated. We know that government agencies serve the interest of the Democratic Party oftentimes. It just so happens that the government agencies' interests also align with the Democratic Party's interests, and such a coincidence that this happens. But anyway, much love to everybody, by the way. Left, right, center, it doesn't matter who you are. Conservative, Republican, Trump, Republican, never Trumper, socialist, communist, liberal, progressive, lifelong Democrat, vote blue no matter who. I love you. God bless you. Have a fantastic day. And you might disagree with me, but this is all love. So I don't want anyone to say, okay, you know what? This person is negative, and I have a distinct viewpoint, but I love everybody, and I want everyone to have a beautiful day and a wonderful 2023. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I'll have segments later today, actually. I didn't have uploads this morning. I will later today, and of course resume with the 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. tomorrow. And become a Patreon. To my new Patreons, thank you. To my super thanks, thank you so very, very much. And that's below. And go to hagoodman.com to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, and other publications. They don't know how much classified data is missing. Of course he's cooperating. Why is he cooperating? Because he's a Democrat, number one. And number two, this seems to be a concerted effort to get him out of the Oval Office. Evidence so far, so ABC News, evidence so far doesn't, all you would need is James Comer or Jim Jordan to issue a congressional subpoena on the visitor logs. So the fact that there were no visitor logs, that alone should get the Federal Bureau of Investigation involved. If this was anyone else, if the standard is you go after a president and you investigate, You can't just say, oh, well, he wasn't cooperating. So what? Clinton never cooperated, and I believe she'll be the 24 nominee, actually. But Clinton never cooperated. There was a congressional demand for servers, and they were broken, destroyed, and completely wiped and deleted. How on earth is that cooperating? Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. The fact that he doesn't know how much classified data is missing warrants a search far more than the Mar-a-Lago issue. Give me your thoughts below. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Thanks, everybody. Huge story that is only going to get worse, unfortunately. Well, for Biden. Give me your thoughts.